Hi guys, what is going on, and welcome back to another video. Now today's video, as you will have been able to see by the thumbnail, it is a revisited trip of my fitness journey. Now I looked at my YouTube channel last night and I was like, oh my gosh, the first ever video that I ever recorded was my fitness journey. I started watching a bit. Probably don't go back and watch it. You can if you want, but I would probably advise not to, because definitely wasn't my favorite video of all time. It was my first video. I felt really nervous about it. I didn't really know what I wanted to say, and to be honest, looking back then, I really wasn't in a good place to talk about where I had been and where I was then, and I feel like I know so much now. Back then I thought I knew everything, and now I know that I know nothing, but I know more than I did then. And sometimes that's just like growing up a little bit, and it's like learning about yourself. I know me talking about it today will really help a lot of you lot, because I know when I kind of do these videos, you reach out to me on my social media channels. You can find me at Sophie Aris, Sophie_Aris on Instagram, or obviously you can drop me a comment below. Always drop me DM. I really spend time looking at them, so you're very welcome to do that. So what I'm going to talk about today is a kind of summary of my journey in the past that led me up to this stage, and I also want to touch on my goals for the future. So if you do like this video, please take a little bit of time, take a moment to subscribe to my channel, drop me a comment, and I would really appreciate it if you press the thumbs up. So let's get on with the video. Going back to primary school, so this was really early on in my life, and I have a really bad long-term memory. I have a good short-term memory, I believe, but my mum always says bad long-term memory. Like, she's like, do you not remember that trip? But what I do remember is there was a boy called Ashley, and he, in the playground, said, Sophie, you have real tree trunk legs. And one thing that I will always remember is that comment, because it stuck with me for the rest of my primary school life, the rest of my high school life, the rest of my college life, and even that little tiny phrase, it still makes me go oof, because I know how it made me feel. And sometimes you have comments through life and you're like, that made me feel really shit. And it kind of stemmed from there, really, all the way through primary school, all the way through high school. I didn't kind of make a really good set of friends, and when I've watched other people's who are maybe like influencers or on YouTube or have built their social media in any way, like a really common theme is I don't know what the word is, feeling quite reclusive, feeling like you don't really fit in, feeling quite isolated. I did have friends, and on the surface I was a real kind of, I would say, like a bubbly personality. I've always tried to be on the surface look like I was happy. I was always a trier. In everything I've done, I've always tried. I feel like sometimes I've tried and it hasn't really been in the right direction, but one thing I have always done throughout my life, in anything that I have been thrown at, I have tried. But in school, I was a trier, and I had to try to be like average in like a C grade. I got a B in some subjects, and a subject that I was extremely good at was arts. I got an A star in my GCSE in art, and I was like, I felt almost like secure. I think I was secure in the classroom. I loved my teacher, and I think it was that security and feeling comfortable. I never knew really what I wanted to do with art, but I knew that I was good at it, and feeling like you're good at something, even if it doesn't really challenge you, it felt to me like I can do this. Like, it's my like safe environment. I don't know if you ever felt like that before, but it was like my safety net. I had a little bit of a kind of troublesome GCSE period when I was 16 years old because my mum left my dad, and that was a really rocky period because me and my sister Emily moved out of our family home. We went to live with my mum. And I still saw my dad some of the time. Emily had a better relationship with my dad, my sister, my younger sister, because she was a bit younger, and she used to be a very, very good swimmer. And she used to go before school, and that was kind of, my dad used to take her there, and she just had a better relationship with my dad at the time. So I would say probably in high school I went a bit off the rails at the end. I hung around with the wrong people because, like I said, I never really had a set group of friends. I never had like a best friend in high school, you know, one of those people that you would call up when you had trouble. And I kind of hung around with the almost naughty people at that time, even though I was one of the goodies in school. I was definitely a goody two-shoes, so it was almost like a bit of a rebellious streak for me, I suppose. And around that time it was just pretty sad in general because both my nanny and granddad died in a very short space of time from each other, and all that with my parents splitting up, it was just quite heartbreaking. My mum was in a really bad place, and I didn't really have a relationship at the time with my dad. So college, I would say, was really quite hard for me. It was 2 years, and like I said, the arts was the comfortable part. So I chose to study all art related subjects randomly as A-levels at a college which definitely wasn't good for me. All my friends went to another college. I thought, no, I'm gonna study art. This is what I want to do. I want to go to university and I want to do art. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was really interested in like fashion, textiles. So the next 2 years, and looking back on it now, I can't really, all I can remember that I was desperately unhappy. There were many times I thought, I can't do this anymore, I need to drop out. My mum was really worried about me. I would say I was definitely borderline depressed, but I feel like I can't remember much of it because it's like a coping mechanism. When you go through a horrendous stage in your life, you kind of don't really remember it. And I've heard a lot of stories and read a lot of things about like a bit of a coping mechanism in your life. You don't really remember that time because you're so desperately unhappy. You kind of just block it out. And I feel like that's what I did, but I was lucky enough to get on a really, really good foundation course at Manchester University, and that was to study like an art foundation course. And because I had kind of gone out of Stockport and moved into like the city, and full of different creative people and all people who have come from different parts of the country, my world was open up a little bit. I moved into a student house. They were all doing like creative subjects too, and I suppose in university I was a little bit happier than I used to be. But going back to how I felt in body confidence, this was the heaviest weight that I had ever been. I would say one of my best friends, if you would call it best friend, she was called Hayley, and she had a great circle of friends from college, and it was a load of girls, and I was invited on their Ayia Napa holiday to Cyprus. Looking back now and knowing what I looked like, that is the heaviest that I have ever been. It was at that stage when I was in Cyprus, I came back and it was an eye-opener. I was just looking at it and looking through them and thinking, is that me? How did I get to this stage? It was a combination of being through university. I was with my first long-term boyfriend at the time. I knew then that I had probably hit rock bottom in the way that I felt and the way that I felt about my body. After that, I started going to the gym. I used to do like 30 minutes on the cross trainer, and I used to do it religiously, and I used to just read a magazine whilst I was on the cross trainer. Now, I did that for a few years. I was kind of plodding along through university, not really knowing what I wanted to do, what I was really good at. And at the time, like when I was in high school, I really excelled in art. But now, being around all these like fabulous people who are so creative, people say if you're around really creative and motivating people, it pushes you yourself. But I lacked self-confidence so much, it almost took me the other way. I was almost a bit of a recluse. I didn't really enjoy the university lifestyle, and I was with this guy at the time, and in my third year of uni I kind of just moved in with him, which, because I isolated so many friends, it probably wasn't the best thing. Anyway, to cut a long story short, right there, we ended up breaking up, and probably a year later down the line, nothing had really changed. I'd maybe dropped a few pounds, but I'd never lifted a weight in my life. Didn't really know what that was. I was kind of just plodding away, and actually it was too busy in the ladies gym, because they had a ladies gym downstairs. I always used to go in the ladies gym because it used to intimidate the hell out of me going upstairs into the guys and girls, just unisex weights area. It was a massive gym. When I go home, I still go to Total Fitness now, but there were these stationary bikes, and it was opposite the weights area. And I went on this bike with a magazine, just Close magazine, like I normally did. I must have spent a small fortune on Close and Heat magazine every week. But I went on these bikes, and a guy, a new personal trainer, came up to me. I'd never seen him before. He was so hench, like really hench. And at the time I was looking at him like, you are amazing to look at. You are so nice to look at. I'd never seen someone look like that in real life before. He came up to me and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm doing cardio. I'm on the bike, I'm doing cardio. And he was like, you're not doing anything, you're just kind of there and not even pedaling, you're not even working up a sweat, you're just reading a magazine. He asked me then if he could take me for a free complimentary personal training sessions, which, to be honest guys, a lot of PTs when they're working the gym floor will ask you in order to get clients if they're new. But I was nervous as hell anyway. I didn't even want to be upstairs. I didn't even want to be on this damn bike. I was probably thinking about a million things at once. Anyway, he was pestering me, and then I said yes, gave him a number, and then I just cancelled on him, obviously. For a few weeks after that, every time I went into the gym, I used to kind of hide, and there was like cross trainers upstairs. It was kind of like, I don't want to see him. I don't know how it happened, but he eventually convinced me to go for a personal training session with him. And actually, being in the weights area, I was so scared, but it felt like he looked like the Hulk anyway. He was like a security blanket. I could kind of hide behind him. I was fascinated by the way that he ate. So he had this moldy piece of fish, and I was like, what are you doing? Why do you want to eat that? It smells so funny. And he was like, I eat these 5 or 6 meals a day. I make them myself. I food prep. I'm doing this because I know that it will change my physique. I do weight training. And it was just a bit of an eye-opener, I suppose, to me, that is actually a way people live. And over the next few months, I was really interested in the nutrition side of things. And even though I was a bit skeptical at the time, he started really helping me with my nutrition. I started to feel more confident in the weights area. It did take a little bit of time, but because I had a set program and I could see a few changes going on. And it was only in the May time, it was like 2 months after I met him, I was dragged along to a bodybuilding competition, and I knew a lot of people in the gym did them. I was really like, why would anyone do that? That is weird. They're just standing on stage in like stripper heels. They've got mahogany tans. This is they're like strippers. Why would anyone want to do that? Especially girls who want to stand in a bikini. But I went along and watched the show, and my perception of what shows were like totally shifted. I was like mesmerized by their bodies and physiques, and the atmosphere in the show was so supportive, and I came out and I was like, I want to do that. It was the first time I felt in an environment, I would say probably in my life, or one of the first times in my life, that I felt an environment which I thought was safe, that I thought that I almost belonged in. And it was a few weeks later that I went to the Body Power Expo for the first time, and that's kind of just confirmed it for me that this is really, in some capacity, what I wanted to do. I never really knew exactly what it was going to be, but I knew that that is what I wanted to do. So this is when I suppose social media and Instagram started to come into my life, because I started documenting every single day. And oh, I forgot about something. I became a teacher. I started to teach children, 11 to 16-year-olds, art. So I got a job as a teacher. I never really knew that that is definitely what I wanted to do, but I got a job. I kind of just fell into it. I knew after my degree, I finished my degree, that I don't really know what I wanted to do. I started talking in schools a little bit and realized I was kind of quite good at communicating, and then just fell into teaching, but knew it wasn't what I wanted to do for like a long period of time. But this fitness thing had just come into my life. I was so excited about it. I had a boyfriend at the time, obviously. He became my boyfriend, this personal trainer, and we were kind of just doing this stuff together in our own little world, in our own little bubble. He was helping me along, and it was all really cool. So I thought I was going to prep for this Northwest show, and I started to lose some weight. And as I was losing weight, I just became a little bit happier in myself, I suppose. I became a little bit more confident. I started to post pictures every single morning. So this was the key thing that changed. Now, being an influencer wasn't really a thing, or maybe it was a little bit back then, but I didn't know anything about it. I fell into this, and without knowing it, I was doing the right thing. I was totally oblivious to it at the time. But because I was a teacher, I only had a set amount of time in the morning if I wanted to post, because I was so busy afterwards, and then went to the gym after meetings at work. I kind of didn't get back till late at night, and I definitely couldn't check my phone throughout the day because I was in work. So every morning before I went into work, so this was 7 in the morning, and it had just been after I went to the gym, I posted a picture on my Instagram. And a lot of the time it was just like a selfie, and it was almost like a Dear Diary kind of thing, I suppose. It was just a, hi guys, this is what I am doing today. It was really struggle doing cardio or weight training and all that kind of jazz. And in fact, that is kind of one of the starting rules for growing your social media anyway, to be relatable for one, to be consistent, because I posted every day, and people love to watch a journey, and they were watching my weight loss journey, they were watching my struggles. I was really open and honest, but to be honest, at the time I didn't really do it for anyone else. I was doing it for myself, and also because I didn't really have many people around me, I was doing it to connect with other people, because I was quite isolated at the time. I just had my boyfriend, who turned into my boyfriend, and he wasn't much fun either because he was on prep as well. But I had this kind of social media, and I started to get followers, and before I knew it, I had about 8,000 followers at the time that I did my first bikini competition, which was the Northwest Championships that I went to watch the year before, and I said I was gonna do that Northwest Championships, and I won. on my first competition. So I am going to cut past the competing stage because I feel like I've talked about that many times before. But basically, if you haven't checked out my other videos about competing, why I stopped competing, I will link them all below, but I talk about it so much there and other parts of my competing journey. So for the next few years, I was on and off competing. I think it was for the next 2 years, and in my end year I did really well at competing. But whilst I was doing all that, and I'm going to go aside from the competing, I realized that my social media was starting to build up, and a journalist approached me when I was still a teacher, and it was a freelance journalist, and she said, I have started just noticing you on Instagram and I'm really interested in your journey and I'd like to do a piece on you. And I was a bit like skeptical at the time. I asked my mum for advice because I always go to my mum for everything in advice terms, and she's very liberal and always, you know, gives me the best advice anyway. And I said, I really don't know what I want to do, because at the time I felt quite anxious about my social media. It was totally private to people at school. They didn't realise, any teachers didn't know, and obviously the children didn't know either. And I was like, gosh, this would come out in the open. I don't know if I want this done. And I was really concerned about it, but I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do it. So the journalist did a piece on me. She rang me up one day and I talked to her about my story, and she said, there's no guarantee it's going to be anywhere, but I just wanted to do it. And then the next day I was in work and received email after email saying, your story is going to be tomorrow in the Sun, your story is going to be tomorrow in the Daily Mirror, your story is going to be tomorrow in the Daily Star. And I freaks out. It was at lunchtime in my classroom. I ran into my head of department, who was actually really supportive, called Jennifer, and I said, what am I going to do? Everyone's going to find out what I do and I'm worried about it. And she was like, there's nothing we can do now, we'll just have to wait, maybe go and tell the head teacher. And the head teacher at the time was definitely not supportive. He thought competing was this thing and it was just like showing your body, and I wanted him to accept it in a way that it was another way of challenge yourself. It was a sport. It was something that actually the kids at the school, that was a real hard, tough school in a very, very deprived area, who they don't really have, a lot of them, much going on for them. They could really learn about the motivation and dedication, and I was really proud about what I did. But because social media was like a new thing and all teachers had to have this blank canvas, like you have to be private and couldn't have a life outside of teaching, he said I had to take my Facebook athletes page down. And even till now, I don't really do anything on Facebook because I was made to take that down. But I was always very, very clear that I was always going to leave my Instagram open. And I'm so proud that I made that decision in myself and stuck by it, that actually, no, I am going to leave my Instagram open. Over the next few days, my Instagram grew by about 20,000 through the stories in the papers, and then I put a transformation picture up, and at that time I think it got like 25,000 likes, thousands and thousands of comments, and it was my first ever picture, probably the biggest picture at the time because it was so many years ago, that actually went super viral. And it's still to this day, like, I'm getting posted in the picture. And yeah, it went crazy. And it was kind of around that time as well that I thought, actually, my following is really growing here. I didn't really know that didn't know I could do anything with it. Like, being an influencer wasn't a thing, but a company called My Protein approached me at the time just for free supplements. It was just a £200 worth of free supplements a month, so actually nothing to live on. But again, to cut the story short a little bit, I decided to go part-time as a teacher. A new head teacher was taken over. The old head was sacked. I'm not happy about everything, but he wasn't a very nice man to me. So I always think people get what they deserve. But a new head took over and he said, Sophie, we really want to keep you as a teacher. You're fab in the classroom. I always knew I was. I will say it myself, I was a really great teacher. I just kind of knew that I had another calling, if you were. I knew that I wanted to do something other than just being a teacher. Not that I'm diminishing anyone who is just a teacher, because it is the hardest job, one of the hardest jobs ever. I take my hat off to everyone who does it. It is a hard job, but I knew that I wanted to do something away from that. I knew I wanted more freedom. And so I started blogging, and I set up a blog and a website called The Way to Glow. And I offered a subscription fee membership, a small fee a month. And actually it took off really well at the time. And I was a part-time teacher, only working 2 days a week, but I was making more money from this initially as I was doing as a part-time teacher, and not having like too many followers. So I was like, this is a thing. I was challenging myself in so many more ways. I was feeling really confident, and I was still competing at the time, so people could follow along on my journey. I was obviously losing weight, gaining weight, so I was doing all the right things to bring in the followers initially. So I did make the decision to quit teaching completely, and that was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago in July. I quit teaching completely, and I thought I will be doing it by myself. I was at Body Power at the time, and I was on the My Protein stand, and Gymshark, Ben Francis, and the athlete manager at the time, Dan Craney, approached me on the My Protein stand and said, we'd really like to have you as an athlete. And I'd never really heard of Gymshark before. Gymshark were very up and coming. The stuff was so different. They had a lot of different athletes that they do now, a very small company, and they offered me more than double the amount just for clothes as My Protein was paying me for the whole thing. And I was just like, this is crazy. I can't believe this is happening to me. My Instagram was flying. So I got sponsored by Gymshark at the time, and I suppose this point here is where I left my first ever video, because my first ever video I had just been sponsored by Gymshark. So I suppose this is where we start. So when I got sponsored by Gymshark, I really knew that Instagram could be such a valuable tool. I never knew it would be such a valuable tool as an extent that it is today. I just kind of went along living my life as a blogger and was documenting life on there. About a year and a half ago, I realised in the October that I didn't want to compete anymore after I placed at the British finals. I had a lot of reservations, and that I explain all of that in a previous video, again, the why I stopped competing video that I will link below. So I had so many reservations about that, but then I thought, if I stop competing, what will I do? What will I do now? No one will be really interested. But because I'd built up such a following, and I suppose just being quite a normal, relatable person, other brands started approaching me, and I realised, actually, if I play this right on Instagram and I keep up my consistency, I keep up the collaborating with other brands, it doesn't matter if I'm completely shredded, because actually just me living a normal female human life who still likes a cookie as much as the rest of the population, I know that that is so much more relatable, and it has been proven because you relate to me so much. And I think because I stopped competing, and I went through a bit of a rocky stage after I competed with binging and a little bit of self-doubt, it was quite hard putting on a normal amount of weight and to be almost like a normal healthy size. But to be honest, when it got to the stage of competing, I wasn't really happy as well. I kind of took it to so much of an extreme. So right now, I am living my life almost in a really secure place. Now, it isn't to say that I don't have my ups and downs or my days where I feel that sense of doubt, because even though I feel like you can recover from that, and it's a lot about your mentality and what you think about yourself and what you think about situations, and I feel like that is definitely what I've learned over the last year about changing perceptions and how I view certain situations, about how I react to them. It's not to say that sometimes I don't have down days, or sometimes I don't feel racked with insecurities. And for example, at the moment I'm working on a secret project. I'll touch on a little bit and not kind of reveal what it is, but in a moment. But I do sometimes have times where I just want to like backtrack and not challenge myself, because naturally that is the type of person I am. I'm not a big challenger and I'm not a big risk taker. The things that have happened to me so far, especially in my Instagram life, it's happened pretty organically. I haven't really taken many risks, haven't really done stuff. It's kind of just fallen into place at the right time. So my plans for future me, the rest of the year, I am collaborating with a lot of brands at the moment, which is fab, because I have moved to London. Obviously that's a big risk. I've changed where I live in life. But because I'm in such a great almost place in my life at the moment, having so much fun, but also working really, really hard, I do feel like at the end of the year, which I'm working on at the moment, I do want to start something separate from just me on camera and on my Instagram page. Even though I do want to continue that, I do want to start something separate that's more long term and not focus on the way I look. And also for me, loving art and not really doing it for so long and having a degree as well in fashion textiles, I do feel like I want to be more creative in that sense. I do have that burning desire inside of me to do something now, and because I feel quite secure about where I am and financially as well, which is always a real big deal to people, including me, I do feel like I can push myself and challenge myself, and I need to do that as well. That is me, guys. I've talked a lot about my life, so I hope that you find it interesting, and I hope some things that I have gone through, it may help you, or you will be able to relate to it, or you will think about things differently about what you're doing as well. And what I would say always when I talk about this, it isn't just to talk about me, it's to really help you out. So if you do find it at all useful, please let me know in the comments below, and I would love to hear maybe what you're going through, your struggles, your dilemmas at the moment. I feel like it's like that section of a magazine that I used to read. There used to be like an issue and an agony aunt used to answer it. Maybe I could be the agony aunt. But as always, I definitely wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without your support, so I thank you wholeheartedly so much, guys. So until next time, I will see you very, very soon.